So good morning, everybody. This is Degree Planner, the new responsive dashboard degree planner with our SIG consultant, Dennis. So for those of you that are not on campus, you're going to need to log in to your VPN. So you should probably take a minute or two to do that. Meanwhile, if we go to the Imperial website, we can go directly to Portal Guard and here, log in. Everybody log in. Everybody's going to see my really long password. All right. And if you're here, you can actually go, now that you're logged in, you can go straight to Banner, which I find it easier than the SSO. And if you scroll all the way down to where it says Banner and Development Testing, you're going to find DegreeWorks. You're going to find two of them, a production and a test one. We're going to go into the test one, and we're going to go into the responsive dashboard. And it should look something like this. Everybody have that? Everybody good? Any questions, doubts? If not, I'm going to hand it over to Dennis. Going once, twice. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Abel. All right. So you want to stop your sharing and I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So this morning, we're going to talk about the dashboard itself. So we're actually not going to really get into the planner much. We'll do that this afternoon. And so anybody's interested in seeing more about the planner, please join us today at 1 o'clock and we'll spend more time on the planner. I'll open it up today just so you can see it. So again, welcome everybody, and I see a lot of familiar faces and names out there. Thanks for joining us. We're at the point now to where we're ready for you to start using this new version of DegreeWorks called the Responsive Dashboard. You can see I've got two screens up here. I've got what you're used to seeing when what I'm going to refer to as the classic dashboard, and then what this new responsive version, the responsive dashboard. Now I'm in test, and what Abel showed you is how to get into the test version of the responsive dashboard. From what I understand, Jeff's you actually have it working in production right now already, and Jeff will be making your main link to go into the responsive dashboard in production here very soon. But as you're testing, just be aware it's called the responsive dashboard, and I'll talk about that in just a minute, you know, why it's named that. But you can see a big difference here. This is, again, your version that you're used to seeing. This has really been the interface to DegreeWorks for forever, since DegreeWorks was implemented about 25 years ago. Here about 3 years ago, they came out with this new interface called the responsive dashboard. Now, everything under the hood, all of the information inside of DegreeWorks, whether you've put in notes for people, whether you put in exceptions or student plans, or just seeing those students, their degree plans and all that's not changed. Everything is going to be the same. And I'll say that many times today. Nothing under the hood has changed, excuse me. It's just the interface, just the look and feel is what's different. So I've got, like I said, both screens up. A couple of things. Number one, you're not going to see as much color on the responsive dashboard. And the reason is this version is ADA compliant. So it meets all of those standards for ADA compliancy, whereas your older version was not. This new version also fits more into what your software vendor, Illusion, has in terms of all of their other products. So as you guys upgrade and go into the new single sign-on, student registration pieces and all that, it's going to look very similar to what you see here, the same kind of look and feel. And then finally, I keep calling this side the responsive dashboard. It is responsive. It's responsive to whatever device you, the user or the student, is looking to when you pull up DegreeWorks. And I'll show you that in a little more detail here in a bit, but it will conform to, like, if you've got an iPad or an iPhone or an Android or something like that, it'll conform and look much better than what you see, what your current version does. So just a few different changes that you'll see. Again, everything under the hood's the same. Let's start out with a search, and I'm not sure how often you guys use the search and find button. You may go straight into a student, and if you do, that'll work just the same. You'll go right into that particular student's audit. If you do have access to use the find and search button, when you press that in the old version, it's called find. Let me just move it over here to show you the difference. In the new version, it's called the advanced search. And so we've tried to make these windows look very similar. Now, really the only difference you're going to see is in your current version, you've got these 3 items over here, and we've determined these aren't even in use. They're actually have dummy items behind them. So those aren't being used anyways. You can search on a degree, and the list of degrees will be the same for both systems. You can search on catalog year, and we've tried to narrow this down to only pertinent catalog years. You can search on majors, and you can search for any or all of these things. Think of these as and. So if I say a degree of, let me just pick a good degree, Associate Arts and Transfer, and catalog year that, and major ag science. So all those work in conjunction. You can also search by, let me clear all that. You can also search for a student's, if you have this access, their ID or a portion of their name. So let's just pull in, so if we did Melody, I don't know if you're out there at all, there's several melodies you can see. It's pulling in their first name. So here's our friend Melody Cronister, or you've got a Jennifer Melody and a Melody Hernandez and a Ryan Melody. So the same works for last name. So if you type in, for example, Smith, I can type, it will pull in anybody that's name is Smith, or if their last name is Smithereens or anything like that. If their middle name is Smith, it would pull in all of those different students. One thing we noticed here in our test system yesterday, the test system has in the old version has Social Security number up here. That doesn't exist in your production system, and it actually doesn't do anything here either. So don't let that worry you when you see that. Obviously, it's not in our new version. Okay, so let's just pull up everybody with a certain catalog year. Let's see what happens. So I'm just going to use the calendar year 2021. I'm going to go over here and do the same thing, and I'm going to press the search button. It goes out and it's going to be looking for the same group of students. In the current system, you get this message that we've gone past. You guys have like a governor of 200 students is the max it'll find. And so you get this message, and it's only really returning the first 200 students. The responsive version does the same thing. It's up here at the top, and you can see that number actually was the exact same number of students, and it'll bring back the first 200. It also works the same, and in the old version, we could do a uncheck all, and maybe just check 1 or 2 of the students if we wanted to, do something like that. Or we can check all of them, and it'll bring up all of the students. Same thing here in the new version. If you uncheck the very top green check mark, it'll either keep or not keep all of the different students. Okay, let's press OK here and select over here, and you'll see the first, what I see as a real major change between the two systems. So as you see on your current version, it pulled up the first student's audit. And we still have our list of students out here, but it actually drew the first one on our screen. That's not the case with the new version. If you're selecting a group of students, it will make you actually go select one before it'll draw it. So if we wanted to pull, it's the same list. You can see all these Kimberly, Melissa, Alberto, Kimberly, Melissa, Alberto, same group of students. It just drew this one by default first, as opposed to this version does not do that. When I click on the student, again, everything under the hood is just the same. We've got the degree in Associate of Arts. We've got the degree in Associate of Arts, institutional and state competency requirements, general ed requirements, and the major on down the line. So everything in that, in terms of the the actual items in the audit are the same. It's just the look. Again, the look is a little bit different. Let's start with the top of the page. You will see that we have the information about the student. And by the way, if the student had multiple degrees, you would see a pull down here that says he has multiple degrees. Now, Kimberly does not have multiple degrees. That's a little bit different in the old system. You got the pull down menu, even though they don't have it. We'll see a student here in a minute that does have 2 degrees. And so you'll see if they do have more than 1 degree, you'll see that down arrow to that opens this up. Then you have the area we call the student header. And we've customized this a little bit to show the student's major, program, and GPA. And we took some of these things off. We were under that we realized everybody's an undergraduate, everybody goes to Imperial College. So there's really not any reason to see those things again up here. So we just decided to not have them up on your page right here. It is not quite as colorful. On your current system, you've got the red and yellows up here, but again, that really tends to lead itself to problems with folks that are colorblind or have other ADA issues. So that's why you don't see that on the new version. Okay, so that kind of brings us to this part of the page where in the past we had these progress bars. That's been replaced with dials, the same information, except for credits, but the same number and percent there. And I'll answer, Eduardo, I'll get to that question here in just a minute, okay? That's a good question. As we move down the line here, you should see, again, everything being very similar, at least like with the number of credits required. The big difference in the responsive dashboard is that you can collapse all of the blocks. If you recall, everything where it has that solid red line in your audit it represents a different block. So for our student here, he's got the degree block that calls this institutional state competency requirement block, which calls it, and also the gen ed block, and then also the major block. Well, all that's the same here. You'll see the same blocks, but one of the cool things about the responsive dashboard is you can collapse everything. And when you do that, what you see there is now just a summary of each one of the blocks. And if you decide you want to go to one of those, you can pull those up. So let's move on down to let's just look at the institutional and state competency requirements. So when you open that up, you'll see the same items in here, but now I'm able to minimize it or maximize it depending on what I want to look at. In terms of the icons, they represent the same things. They just look a little bit different. In the new version, the still needed icon is a red circle as opposed to a red square. And if you notice when I fly over it, it actually says what this means, not complete. The in progress, where before was the little tilde or squiggle, now it's this half moon. Again, when I fly over it, it just says the in progress classes are, when they're completed, this agreement, it would be met. And finally, for items that are completed, when you fly over those things, there's a green check mark in a circle instead of the square. Now, in terms of clicking on these items, so in the past, you could, when you fly over one of the requirements that are still needed, like POLS 102 here, when I click on it, a box comes up where it shows the course, information about the course, and then any scheduled sections of that course in upcoming semesters. Now, we're on the test system here, and it's not showing any of the scheduled courses, but it does. It will once you get into production. In the new version, it works exactly the same. The window looks a little bit different, but the same information and the same. If you had some sections scheduled, it would be listed under here as well. So that functionality is just the same. If one minor difference is for these requirements that have a hard prerequisite in banner. In the old system, you saw this asterisk right there. In the new system, it's a clipboard. And again, when you fly over that clipboard, it'll tell you that there's a prerequisite for this requirement. Okay. You're still going to see all of your other buckets, and again, they'll open and close as you need them to. I was wanting to check this insufficient. Okay, yeah, it's in alphabet. They are alphabetized now, which I know in one of the older versions they weren't, but still same information. Transfer work is in there, whether or not it was repeated or anything like that. Again, we'll change these to credit, the units and not credits. And then finally, the in progress items are right there. So a question that Eduardo asked is that he didn't know you could select a group of students, and you create a group, for example, a cohort. And unfortunately, I'm going to say you can't, Eduardo, but actually, I guess with help from Melody and her staff, if it was a cohort that you're using all the time, you could theoretically create that. So say, well, sport's a good example. If you've got a cohort of athletes, you could you could create that cohort and use a selection criteria on those if you wanted to. It would require some a little bit of different configuration, not programming now, but configuration. It's fairly straightforward to do, but Melody and Jeff and Abel, they would have to set that up for you. So if you feel like it's really important, it may be something to get on their list of to-dos.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, good question. Please, and so let me ask, anything anybody sees right off the bat here that you like or don't like, or any differences or anything like that you want to ask about? I'm logged in here as guest 2. That's my name. You'll see your name up there, so that's a good way to kind of determine who you are, if you're the student or if you're yourself. I also may have some things that you may not have, such as some of these buttons that depending on your access, you may or may not have those buttons. Okay, let's kind of talk about the different parts of what's out here now that's the same or different. In the old version, you have worksheets, plans, petitions, exceptions, GPA, calc, and admin are all here at the top. Those things are parceled out a little bit in the new version. So you could do, so for example, the plans and for some reason the weird way I've got it minimized here. Plans is up at the top. So you can see here's our plans tab, and later on when I talk about plans, I'll go into that tab. If you have access to put in exceptions, they're up here. If you had access to the admin tab, they're up here. So those keys, those things are still here. They're just moved around a little bit. Now, in terms of the GPA calc and petitions, those are still also here, but now they're under this ellipses. So over here, you see the GPA calc, which is just like this. You see the class history, which is actually in the old system, this button there. When I press class history right there, comes back with the same information, but the button has moved a little bit. And then finally, petitions, if you're using these requests for petitions, you could, they're on that drop-down list. So still there, just moved around a little bit. In terms of the items on the left-hand side, the history, what if, and the what if history and look ahead, history has been moved a little bit. It is now right here where there's a pull-down menu. This particular student has only had one audit. Let me go ahead and run another audit for him real quick just so you can see. If you have access to see historical audits, and it looks like we've set your number of historical audits to 1, so you don't have the history anymore. So you only have one history, I should say. So let's talk about the what if, and I know there's some questions out there, and I'll get to those here in just a second. In the old version, the what if looks a little bit different than it does in the new version. In the old version, it popped up this screen where you had to pick a academic year, and then you had to pick a program, a major, or the program, and then the major was based on that program. Let's go ahead and just, so it's an, let's pick a different major, and you can see that that major is associated with that program. In the new version, same kind of functionality. You can see you've got catalog year, although it'll default to the student's current catalog year. You can pick the degree or the program. Let's go ag transfer. Let me go find it up here. Ag business transfer. I did the CSUGE. And you can see here that it also pulls in that program of study. If you wanted to add additional programs of study, you can do that. There's a down arrow which will allow you to go in and add an additional major if you want to. Let's just see what happens if we add that major, and then we process it. And so that basically works the same way as doing the process what if. You can see in this, and I forgot to add the other major here on this side, but I'm not sure why that stayed on the screen. But you can see we've got now the bag business transfer and all the CSU stuff, and then we've got the major in computer science. Now, if we want to go back and modify what we've done with the what if, you can do that, and that's through this what if analysis area right here. When I click down on there, it will then come up to where what I just put in, and if I want to make a change to that, let's say maybe I want to try the IGETC instead of the CSU, I can make that change. So I don't have to go back and redo the whole what if or anything. There's one more tab over here called the Look Ahead tab. That's been replaced. It doesn't have its own tab anymore. I don't know if anybody uses that, but now it's this future classes area. So if you want to stick a class in to see what it would look like, let's just say COM 100. I'm just going to stick COM 100 in right there. And you would and if you process their audit, and you'll see now that here is COM 100, and it shows as planned. Now, when you do the look ahead like this, it doesn't save it. It doesn't save this audit or doesn't save this look ahead. It'll be there until I decide to move my navigation back over here to the academic. So when I go to academic and then I come back to what if, you can see my look ahead is gone, as is my what if. So just be aware of that. If you want to do planning of courses, you really need to go through the planner. Okay. Let me answer these questions. So Veronica asked, could students be grouped in more than one cohort? You could. I mean, yeah, I may have opened up a can of worms here, but yeah, you can. You can group students as many cohorts as you want. You've got if you guys end up adding some search items here, you would have a maximum of 10 custom search items that you could put in here. And by that I mean like cohort 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down to 10 or something like that. But each one of those is going to take some work from the IT folks. So probably put in a request and let them work to do that. But yeah, a student could be in multiple cohort groups. Do we need to do a reset after every term? I don't quite follow you on that. Do you mean this type of reset, or Veronica, what is kind of, where are we going with that?
Thank you, Dennis. On the old version, there's, by the last refresh, there's a little circle where I usually, as many of my colleagues, refresh after every, when you're going to see a student. Mm-hmm. Just because they don't know to refresh, and sometimes they'll be saying like, hey, I took this class and it doesn't appear. It's right, because some of them don't know to refresh. So I'm thinking, where's the refresh button here? Or do we don't need to do that anymore?
No, it's still not a bad practice to do that. I do it all the time as well. But that button has changed a little bit. It's
Oh,
right.
okay, I see it.
I call it the dog chasing its tail button because it kind of looks like a dog running around in circles.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing, same functionality. When you
Thank
press
you.
that, if so, like this student hasn't had any data changes, so the difference is you're going to see that blue up there, whereas before you saw a little window.
Got it. Thank you. That makes sense now. I didn't see the little.
Vero,
Okay,
I asked the same thing yesterday, and on some of our ends, we don't have that refresh button Dennis was pointing to, but there is that process button below it. If you can highlight that, yeah, that one there, that will refresh it as well.
Oh, okay.
Now we'll tell you there's some things that are different. Obviously, the colors and the header has different things. There is something that I would consider not as good with the new version, and that's the print. So you see here you've got the save as PDF, which does a nice little PDF for you. Give it a second to do that. Now in the new version, you've got the print icon, but all that does is basically just print your page, and you can do it as a PDF, but kind of like if you printed a web page, and so it's very long. I think I looked at it yesterday and it was like, okay, 11 pages. So lots of white space, and you can make this as a PDF if you want. I'm not sure why this is taking a long time, but everybody knows what the PDF looks like here on the classic version. So this is one big difference, probably a negative difference. The company did address this in your upcoming version. So in the future, this will also be able to create a nice PDF for you. But just as we roll it out this week and next, the PDF is going to be a little bit bigger. So just be aware of that. It's going to look, it's going to look like if you're going to try to print a web page. Let's see. The other icons here, the envelope. If you're an advisor looking at a student like I am, when you press on the envelope, it's going to bring up the student's email address. And then if you would click on this, I'm not going to go to it because it'll send me on my computer here, I'm set to go to my Hotmail account. Melody says that on your system, if you're on an on-campus system, you're set to your Outlook. So when you click on this, it'll take you directly to your Outlook account to email that student. That functionality is actually there already in your current version. If you do the hyperlink on the student's name here, it's basically the same thing. Now, if I'm a student looking at this, that envelope, I don't think you guys have designated advisees per advisor. Typically, it would go to your advisor if you were a student. I'm not sure what it's going to take you to, quite frankly, if you don't have an advisor set up. I think it'll probably have a blank email address right there. Let's see. Any other? Okay, yeah. Melody says it'll launch your default email information, your email browser, whatever that is. Okay, so let me go ahead and close open it up full width, and again do a little playing around with it. So I mentioned the collapse and the uncollapsed. To me, that's a really handy way to, when I collapse it, I can see in a real quick overview what the student needs, where he's standing, and then if I want to drill down to any of those, if I can. When you look at this through the eyes of and I'm going to minimize that one and get it out of our way. When you look at the audit on an iPhone, when you do that, what you're going to see is it's going to know that what device you're on. And see how I changed the window here. Now, all the information is still there, but it's just in more kind of a concise, way to look at it. I can drill down when I do the show more on the header. It'll show my whole header or show less. Everything inside of here. So if I wanted to look at, let's just go to the degree. You see how it's already collapsed, but if I want to pull it up, I can. And then the requirements inside the degrees are actually collapsed as well. So like you can see my residency, I guess there's really not anything to show in there. Let's go down to the major itself. So for this particular major, there's 3 areas. One is the I get C stuff. So you can blow that up and you can see there's the information. One's the 6 units in a complete subject area. So there's all the scribing that goes along with that. If I wanted to look more, I can just basically keep drilling down to see the different items. So works very nicely with whatever type of device you have. That's compared to if you're in the current system or old system, what you have to do is, a lot of the white space is taken up by this over here. You have to actually move your window bars around, and then it's just always a little bit cumbersome to see what your different things are. We've done some focus groups with students, and they seem to really like this new format, and so I think yours will too. We've also done focus groups with advisors. They seem to like the older version better, but change is hard for people that are old like me. So, but I was the same way. I initially didn't care much for this version, but as time goes on, I've gotten to where I like it a lot better. I didn't mention about the if you have if you're able to save an audit, it's right here. If you're able to freeze or save an audit, that's here in the middle of the page. If you're able to see any of the other views, they're here in this drop-down menu. For those of you that are like in the registrar's office or IT that have access to the diagnostics or the student view, they're still here. In the old one, they were a part of this drop-down. Now they're not. They're separate links. But one cool thing that happens when you click on one of these is it opens up a whole new window browser of the diagnostics report. So you get to kind of see it in 2 different windows. So that's in itself very helpful. Melody mentioned about CPOS and what CPOS is that you can see in Melody's chat there. It stands for Course Program of Study, which is something you guys are in the process of also implementing. And what it does, it looks at a student that's on some type of Title IV financial aid and runs their audit to see if all the classes they're registered for are within their program. Because by law from the Department of Ed, you can only pay for courses that are in a student's program. Most schools, mine included, and probably IVC, did not really adhere to that law like we should have. And that's why you guys, as are many, many more schools, implementing CPOS right now so that you can follow those guidelines. And that's basically what these 2 buckets here at the bottom, electric credits included and excluded, means. Might as well talk about those while we're here, Melody, to give everybody an idea of what you're going to see. Included, those courses included means that they are part of the electives count that the student can have. If say, for example, your degrees are 60 credits or 60 units, it looks like probably 48 of them are taken up with gen ed requirements and major requirements and that kind of thing. So you've got 12 credits or units here that the student can use. And whereas anything over those 12 units have to be, can't really be used for financial aid. And so that's what these are. So that's another time that we're going to save audits, is to make sure you've got the financial aid office as a trail to give to if they're audited on why a class was paid for or why it wasn't paid for. So yeah, you will. Otherwise, it does take up a lot of space saving audits. And like I said, I made sure that our that no one could really save audits except me. And you don't need to. I heard I think it was Veronica say that she did the process new or the process every time. And what you're doing is basically recreating a new audit by doing that. And that's really the accepted method. You want to know where the student is right now. We don't really care how they were a year ago. We want to know how they are right now. And so that's why you don't really save audits.
Yeah, and I could just build on that real quickly. And so just think of the save audits as it's what we took action on. So that's why admissions and records, they save it because they took action on that audit that day and time to graduate a student. And for CPOS, they took action. They only run it after census. That one time they use that to do a financial aid, right? And so they need to save it so that if the student said, hey, why did I get what I got? They can go to that saved audit. So regardless of what it looks like today, that's what it looked like then for auditing purposes. So that's the intention of the saved audit piece. I don't know if that provided additional clarification.
Yeah, I like the way you put that. That's good. Okay. Let me stop and see if there's any other questions. You guys had some good questions so far. How about thoughts? Do you have any positives, negatives? It won't hurt my feelings one way or the other.
I was just going to say, Dennis, that, change is always good. Change is for the better. Obviously, this is ADA compliant. And, once we start using it, I think we'll start getting the hang of it and just get comfortable with it and play around. So I'm thankful for the opportunity, like the other day, in building our plans. There's obviously when we test it and we're actually working with it, we can actually see. You can show us, but then I think I'm a kinesthetic learner, so I know that I have to do it myself, so I can remember. But I think it's a good thing. Change is good. I mean, I really don't like the fact that if I print, I get 11 pages because, normally right now I've been using online stuff for a while now, but students sometimes, when we go back to face-to-face, we do an EOPS, we do save stuff for our folders. And I know that student support services, like where Eduardo is at, in that program, they have to print stuff and put them in a folder too, just because that's a federal requirement and a requirement for the program. So, I would hate to, kill more trees and print 11 pages for files, especially when there's majors that are long with tons of courses, like elementary ed or pre-engineering. Those would probably be even longer than 11 pages. So that's I think so far that I don't like, but I love that email. I didn't know that we had it on the other one either, but I really like that because sometimes students don't know how to save PDFs for whatever reason, but I try to show them so I don't have to print it for them and they can always go into it and look for it. So,
yeah, right. Yeah.
Those are my 2 cents.
And I'm like you, I would tell you when, especially the last few years when I was, in a position I was in, when they would say a student's coming to see me, I'd print their audit out, and I just like to have their own piece of paper in front of me and I'd make notes or what have you on there. But, and so hopefully though, here in the not too distant future, that they'll be able to put up the new version and it will have the PDF is going to be exactly what you have now. So
was there a place here where we could do like in the old DegreeWorks, there was a notes page, like where you could see all the notes, or is that not on here?
No, you do have notes now. I noticed the other day they're turned off for me and Melody. I don't know if that's just in our test system, but it would be right here.
Okay.
This is where the notes are, and we'll and maybe something we need to check in production. I'm gonna make a note of that too.
Oh, I see it. It's just that the student didn't have any notes. Those notes are not the notes on the plans, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it's a separate type of note. These are notes for the audit. So you have plan notes and then you have audit notes.
Is there any like if there is any distinction on the note, let's say on the one that I'm working on that I put in my student, it was the same one that I did the plan, and I know she's my graduating student, and if I wanted to put a note that I did put under her plan in the test plan that we did last the other day, is there like an alert for the student that pops up, or it's change of color, or it's just simply that
No,
we need to
I've
show
had
them?
somebody else ask that before too, and no. Can I look at that student real quick? Do you have a note out there for them?
I have it. Let me see if I'm pretty sure I put one in the plan the other day.
Okay, yeah, and if it's in the plan, we won't see it here on this
Yeah,
page.
no, I didn't put a note on the whole audit, but I do, because I tend to put notes for the students as reminders. And I think Trini was the one that asked on Wednesday that, when we print the plan, we have the option to print the notes, because sometimes there's certain semesters that they need to do certain things. For example, my students that are applying to transfer right now obviously had a note before that said, CSU application and UC application start early October 1st, deadline November 30th, or like I want them to apply for graduation, kind of like reminders for them. But for me too, when I'm seeing students, since we see a lot of them, like I like to have it early for the student as a reminder versus, because I know we send emails, but I know that, they get bombarded with emails. And I like the fact that we can put the notes on the plan, because when the student clicks on their plan, they actually can see those notes, or at least I show them. But now it would be nice to have some kind of, I don't know, differentiation or something that stands out that say, hey, you have notes. Kind of like when you're using an app. Yeah.
Pero like the old plan used to have, the old DegreeWorks.
This one has it too. This one has our.
But I mean, the notes used to be right next to the semester and that was really nice to have.
Well, yeah, because it pops up the other way. Mm-hmm. What I do, guys, I mean, honestly, when I have new students in EOPS, I always try to show them the navigation around DegreeWorks, and I always make sure that before they leave from my appointment, that they know how to access it on their own. Because what's kind of cool about the single sign-on is that they don't know, but on that login button on our webpage, they have access to all their tools. But what they don't know sometimes is that they have a single sign-on like we do, and all their tools are on there. And I tell them, just click on that. You can maneuver back and forth in Canvas and DegreeWorks, and then I show them how to get into their notes, because you're right, this one is not as easily seen as we had it before. So it'd be nice if something would be like an alert, or I don't know, sometimes when you guys have those mobile apps, or we have mobile apps, like you're checking your bank statement or a credit card or whatever, you always have those little alerts, hey, you have a message. That would be kind of nice here, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it would be nice. Let me show you guys the plans real quick, and kind of what she was saying. I don't know if this student has a plan or not. It doesn't look like they have. I mean, Tesla, I'm gonna go ahead and just create a plan. This is what the new planner looks like. We'll dive into this slide more this afternoon. But I don't know if you were on one of the sessions we talked about the notes. So with the new planner, it does have notes. I mean, there's notes for the test, for the plan itself, for the term, for any course. Let me just add a course real quick for this student. So you can see how you add a course. Adding courses are very simple now. But you can have a note for the course. So I'm just going to say this is a course note. And then you can have, but you can't see it whenever. All it says is view note. So the student or you has to actually drill down in there to see it. And in the old version, you could see it. It would stand out. This is the term note. Same thing. You see the icons changed a little bit, but that's it. And same for the plan. So you've got 3 levels of notes. but I'm not happy the way they've done that, and that you should at least be able to fly over it. And then when you print it, when you print their plan, it doesn't even say anything about the notes. Let me see if that can print out here. Give it a second. So see, there's no, you don't see any notes on here, which you could before. But as we were talking about it, I think it was yesterday, what I would suggest is if you, and I think it was Veronica was saying that, she puts in there, she puts a note like you need to apply for graduation or do this or that. I would use a placeholder, because when you use a placeholder, and you can make the placeholder, and you've got these choices. Melody could go out and add more choices if you want, one or two, or so. But you could put like a comment, and then you could, this could be your note to the student, whatever it is. And when you save that, they do see that. And even when they print the audit, you'll see that comment out there. So that's the way I'd recommend it. In fact, I was happening to be seeing something on the Aleutian community this week, and they mentioned the same thing, that if you have no need, do a comment.
How can you do that again? Because I'm looking at the plan that I did under the test mode the other day, and I put the notes. I do see the notes, but I know that they're there because I have to click on it. But where did you get to put that comment?
Okay. So I'm looking at the audit. You may be looking at it something like, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the plan.
I'm exactly like you're at right now.
Okay. So right here, there's a cycle. So like there's 3 different choices: courses, requirements are still needed. If you go to the requirements, you can see placeholder, and then just click on that plus, and then you can pick whatever thing you want. And you guys, I know you guys have a lot of placeholders out here already. This is just, it could be as many as you want. Say if you pick one of those, now you do always have to put a value in here. Please send in final transcripts or something along those.
Oh, I like that.
And then when you save it, they'll see it. So when they pull up their plan, they'll see that, and it's in a different color, so it stands out a little bit. So that's what I would recommend.
I like that a lot better than putting the actual note. Yeah.
I'm really disappointed in the way they did that, but this could be and actually what I wish they would do is just put a note field right here as one of the requirements, but we'll have to use this placeholder for now.
Thank you.
That's a little taste of what the plans look like. I'm going to jump back to the worksheet itself. Now, just remember, anything you do in the plans is not seen in the worksheet itself. No, but before I leave the plans, within the plan, though, you can do an audit. And when you run an audit within the plan area, it will show those placeholders at the bottom of the audit. So it'll show any courses you have planned. Now, I just randomly picked a course, so it's probably not even going to be in. It's probably going to be in the drop down here. You can see here's our placeholders. The 2 I just put in, and here's the fall through, and here's that course I just planned. But here's those 2 notes that I put in there. And Melody, you guys could change that name if y'all don't want to call it placeholders. If you want to call it something else, that's just a configuration change. Yeah, and Monica, yeah, I guess I wasn't watching chat, Monica, and you put just what I was thinking there, that you might want to change that name, and Melody can do that for you. Yes, Melody, I'm giving you a lot of stuff to do today. Sounds like so.
How it goes.
Our to-do list is getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, sorry, Jeff. So.
We have it recording, so we know everything that's being said, and Abel's making a list too, so that we're trying to capture everything.
Okay, questions or thoughts or any other good thing, bad thing? What do you think? Well, if not, appreciate you guys attending, and if you have some questions down the road, Abel and Melody are are out there to help you guys. And again, I think Jeff's going to have all this going live today or next week. And good luck with it.